Relapses do not happen overnight. What was going on in your lives prior to your physical relapse? Were you emotionally relapsing? Were you mentally relapsing? What was going on?
I think the first time I relapsed, I was 22. I was young. I was in AA, and I had slowly started to pull away from AA. I pulled away from my sponsor. I pulled away from my sober friends. And then when the time came when I was there, I was like, I'm very sad. What do I do? Do I call someone or do I drink? And I had pulled away from everyone I could call, and so I drank.
I would say I have like one genuine relapse where I was trying to get sober. And because I wasn't taking I was more so going through the motions in treatment and just kind of checking boxes and not really doing the work to really deal with the underlying causes of my addiction. And that kind of came out as, me struggling, like you said, mentally, emotionally, kind of just being, as they say, a dry drunk, where, you're still pretty miserable. You just don't have the drugs in your life. And eventually, it was too much for me to deal with without them.
And then what did you do to get yourself out of it?
I went back to treatment. I, leaned on, the friends I had already made in that same treatment center. And I really dove into, self-help programs, mainly Alcoholics Anonymous.
I think each time I relapsed, it didn't necessarily start terrible, but it just got progressively worse and worse. And each time I did need to go to a treatment center to stop. I wasn't able to stop on my own.
What are the important messages regarding relapse that parents should know?
I think parents need to know that more often than not it is going to happen. Yes, some people get sober their first time trying, but often, especially we see with young people, it's not the first time. It's going to take several times. Understand that it's part of the process, and it does not mean that all the work your child has put in up to that point is gone. It just means that something's not working, and some actions need to be taken to get back on the right track.
I'd say it's as much part of recovery as recovery. I think it is really going to sift out a lot of things if properly looked at as to what wasn't working before and what can work this time around.
A lot of times relapses happen when there's a lack of self-care. And this is where that acronym comes into play, HALT. Hungry, angry, lonely, or tired.
Yeah, because if you observe your child not taking care of their eating or sleeping or physical health, there's more times than not there's something going on internally that maybe might not be as apparent. And I think for me, I did use HALT a lot early on. And the L for me is the big one, lonely, because that's, as we said, the opposite of addiction is connection. So if I'm lonely, I'm not going to meetings, I'm not calling people, it's a relapse waiting to happen.
What are some signs that parents need to look out for prior to relapse?
I think for me, it was I stopped showing up. We'd have dinner plans, and I don't show up. I'm retreating. I'm spending a lot of time by myself.
Yeah, I think for me it was isolating, and just kind of those old negative habits cropping back up. It's I'm staying up real late, I'm sleeping in, I kind of acting like a depressed person again. Was a pretty big telltale sign.
Even if it's not conscious, there is a change in how I'm going to interact with my family, or how somebody close to me might be interacting with me if they're going to relapse, where there is the distance, but then also that propensity to argue, just out of nowhere is going to come up again, and individuals going to become combative, and just really start to burn the bridge before the bridge is actually on fire.
So when parents first see those signs of relapse, what should they do?
I think it's a great opportunity to sit down with your child and share your observations, again, from a place of curiosity, and see how the child responds. Maybe there's other explanations.
Yeah, I think just kind of sitting down with them and getting the full picture of what's going on, sort of what Zach said is pretty big. And then just kind of offering support and exploring ideas of how they can get back on track or, get away from these, old habits that are cropping back up.
A strong relapse plan is always really good to have, because even if a relapse hasn't occurred and you're just suspicious of it, a good relapse plan is going to involve those first few steps and actions of talking to them, talking to like the supports that you have in place in the event of a relapse. In my case, I still have a relapse plan because I'm never gonna not be totally good. And so like the suspicion of relapse is like immediately jump into that relapse plan. Hopefully you still have like a support that you can call as a family member, however much time your loved one has sober. I know for a fact I can go back to the treatment center I went to for 2 weeks anytime, even if I haven't taken a substance.
So how important is it for parents to know that even if your child relapses, it doesn't mean that all the work you've done prior is erased, that you still have that great foundation?
I think it's crucial to know that, you know, you're not going back to square one. You know, the child is able to evaluate like what worked and what didn't, and, you know, kind of leave the stuff that didn't work and, you know, continue on with what does. That was big for me for sure.
It's important to communicate that so the child doesn't feel like a failure. Because, you know, in my case, I worked super hard, I relapsed, and then, you know, I relapsed for a time, and then I got back to treatment, and I continued using the tools I'd learned from the first treatment. It made it easier the second time.